When getting your car inspected before you go on a big road trip blows up right in your face. Let's get started. This is a 2009 Mercedes-Benz S550, 4MATIC, Airmatic, all the gizmos. These are really nice cars. This customer is one of our very good customers, really enjoy doing business with him. Age is really catching up to this car. He brought it in thinking there's some issue with the front left brakes, maybe dragging, and also the coolant gauge is acting weird, and maybe there's something going on with a water pump or a thermostat or something like that. That's it. There was supposed to be just those two items. Like I mentioned, there's a road trip coming up in a couple of weeks down to Texas, and just wanted to get things checked out and make sure it's ready for the trip. No, it's probably not going to be able to go on the trip. It's really bad. There's a lot of these for sale on Facebook Marketplace, these S550s. 9, 10, 11 grand. You're like, man, I can really score. I can buy one of these for cheap and cruise and enjoy an S550. The fact is, it'll take another 10 or 11 grand to sort it out. To get this one sorted out of everything that Grimes found, being that he's the Mercedes guru, 8, 10, 12, I don't know how big it's going to be exactly in the end, but it's going to be super, super high. A lot of the problems we're going to show you today, Grimes is going to walk us through it, are inherent to this 221 chassis. There's so many things that can fail on these, and it's common across the board on a lot of them. So definitely pay attention to what we find here, because yours might have the same problem. Let's take a look around this thing. Here's the front of this S550. It's in very good shape. The paint's very nice, the chrome's nice, but it does have a busted out fog lamp. You can see down the side, it's not really dented or beat up or rusted. The paint shows very well on this. As we go down to the rear, you can see S550 4MATIC. I really like the rear end of these cars. It's very, very elegant. I've always liked these ever since Hoovy had his S600 that he had many years ago. Let's go ahead and hop under the hood. Before we open up the hood, I wanted to talk to you about something that is just as concerning as cars and car repairs. It's your online digital safety. I recently Googled my name and found a website that's just shocking. It has my current address, my cell number, Mrs. Wizard's cell, my private email, even my old address for when I was in the military 20 years ago. This is why today's video is sponsored by Aura. They provide protection in the digital world that will keep you and your family safe. As much as you want to think your info isn't out there, I can tell you, it is. Data brokers sell your info to scammers and spammers. Your full name with your address, phone number, health records, and relatives are already out there. We hear all the time on the news about a company that has had their system hacked and customer data lost. AT&T revealed that over 73 million customer records, both current and former, were released on the dark web. They recommend those affected to use strong passwords, monitor account activity, and consider credit freezes or fraud alerts from credit bureaus. I don't have time to do all that, but Aura does. They show me which data brokers are selling my info and automatically submits opt-out requests from me. They also protect me from hackers that try to access my social media, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. I also don't want to use multiple apps just because a company can't keep my data safe. Aura keeps me safe all within one app. If my info was compromised by AT&T data breach or one of the many others we hear about, I wouldn't worry. Aura is always on and working 24/7. You know that I want to keep you safe. No one wants a bad car repair, car scam, or have their privacy invaded. Go to aura.com/carwizard to start your 2-week free trial. That link is in the description below as well. Now let's get back to this S550. So here we have the 5.5 liter V8. Grimes has obviously been in here and had some things apart. These are actually a very good engine. You could get a V12 in here, you could get the V8, there's also S350s. There's various different engines you can get with these models of cars. This one happens to be the 550 V8. Let me go grab Grimes and we can start diving into why is it so expensive to fix this car. So this came in with a complaint that the temperature gauge was acting weird and possibly a thermostat issue or something like that. What did you actually find on it?
So what he thought was a thermostat issue actually turned out to just be low coolant.
Low coolant, okay.
And You can tell over here that the thermostat housing and the neck and the upper radiator hose are all, well, I think that's the lower radiator hose, but one of the radiator hoses is leaking pretty heavily. So just having that low coolant level is causing that level to rise and fall and cause the fluctuation in temperature that he was experiencing.
Let's take a look at some of these leaks. So you can see where Grimes is talking about the leaking, it's actually staining this thermostat housing. It's just pouring coolant out of here. And also, you can see right where I'm pointing is where the radiator hose goes in. It's actually leaking out of there as well. You would think we would fix that and he'll be back on the road, but it just gets worse from there, doesn't it?
Yep, we went ahead and did a full inspection on this and found quite a few problems with it.
Quite a few problems. What do you think about these 550 V8s?
The naturally aspirated one, this is the M273, shares basically all the architecture with the 272, and these things are really solid.
They're rock solid.
They don't have many issues as far as the internals, you know, major leaks, anything like that. I've done very few major repairs on these drive lines. Okay,
so we had two complaints. We had the temperature gauge acting weird. We figured what's going on there. Some clunking or something going on in the front brakes. We'll take a look in a minute, but after your inspection, there's a whole slew of things. Let's get this thing in the air and show you guys what we're talking about. So Grimes has already removed all the belly pans, and you can really see one of the other coolant leaks really well. I'll show you guys. You can see the green coolant pooling right there. It's constantly dripping as we're talking, so that's definitely a leak. So one thing you noticed while it was sitting here, one of these corners would like go flat, the air suspension?
Yeah, so it's out overnight, and this passenger side front corner would go down. It airs back up, and you know, while it's operating and driving, it does fine. But this strut did not get replaced when you did the other one.
Right. And
this one's leaking now.
That one's starting to leak. I know from replacing the last one, just a strut alone, no labor, just a strut is $1,200. So without doing anything else, talking about the leaks or anything else, we're already at $1,200 just with that strut. Looks like he might have hit a paint can or something.
Yeah, the under panels were covered in this stuff. Landlord beige latex paint probably hit it on the highway, and I did notice that front fog light was cracked. I'm guessing that might have been from the same thing.
Okay, so yeah, it was a paint can and not a rock or something. So there's some clunking going on up here as well. We're actually still diving in, but you have a suspicion it was what?
So this control arm has been replaced. This is an aftermarket one. When I had this on the 4-post lift, this lower ball joint appeared like collapsed. So this was sitting a lot closer to this, and there's not. It's hard to get any idea of excessive play or anything while it's completely assembled. But my gut instinct is that lower ball joint is failing.
One thing you mentioned too is that these brakes are getting pretty thin.
Yep, the front pads are at about 3 mils, which is replacement spec. If he doesn't do them this time, then very likely he'll have the brake warning come on.
Yeah.
And
I can feel a pretty deep groove right there.
Yeah, and the rotors do measure under spec, so they'll have to be replaced.
So rotors and pads and wear sensors. So it's piling up, guys, and we're not even done yet. There's so much more.
We're only at the subframe at this point.
Yep. Another thing you noticed was some oil from here, but it's actually coming up from up above.
Yep, on the back of the cylinder head on these, all the way up at the top there. There you go. Yeah, you can see it. There's a centrifugal oil separator. It's kind of like a crankcase ventilation or a PCV valve on these, and those seals are really commonly failed. And then on the other side, one of the cam plug seals is starting to leak at the top, but
they're little black circles you guys can see up there.
Yeah. And those are also a really common leak on these.
Okay. And then as you were looking around that leak, something struck you about the front drive shaft. Being this is 4MATIC, it has all-wheel drive, so there's a front drive shaft, and you're thinking it's toast?
Yeah, the front drive shaft is starting to fail. As you rotate the tires, may be hard to see on camera, but you do get the slightest amount of play in that front U-joint,
Oh yeah, I see
And once those start to go, they kind of go quickly. And when those fail, those can actually cause that front U-joint to separate, and it can damage your oil pan, transmission bell housing. I've seen them damage engine blocks.
it. Complete destruction.
Yep.
One thing I want to show you guys too, in case some of you are saying, why don't you just replace the U-joint? You can't. We've talked about this on videos in the past. You see there's little stake marks. Those are staked in from the factory. There's no circlips or any kind of snap rings or anything. They smash them in from the factory and is non-serviceable.
Yep. These are replaced as a whole unit. The drive shaft is.
So you buy the whole drive shaft or you grenade your engine. You guys get to make the choice.
And another 4MATIC issue, the transfer case half seal, so where the transfer case itself mates to the transmission, is leaking really heavily. It's another common issue on these.
It looks like it's destroyed that mount.
Yep, and once they start leaking down onto rubber mounts and all of that, it'll cause them to kind of disintegrate. And also, the transfer case shares fluid with the transmission on these. Mm-hmm. So he's not just leaking transfer case fluid, he's leaking transmission. And that could lead to, premature failure of the transmission as well. And
you noticed by looking at that mount a little bit ago that actually the engine mounts themselves up front are collapsed as well, yep. Aren't they?
Yeah, and these typically fail at about 100,000 miles, the engine mounts do. Mm-hmm. They'll kind of collapse and you'll start to notice some vibration while it's idling.
So I know the drive shaft is like a 3 or 4 hour job.
Yep.
This is like 8 or 10 hours. And then the motor mounts are like 3 or 4 for those up front. So we're getting up to what, 10, 14, 8, almost 20 hours of labor.
And with that there is a tiny bit of overlap, mm-hmm. Doing the mount with the transfer case, but outside of that, not a whole lot. In order to do the drive shaft, you do have to remove, the exhaust, giving you easier access to the mounts. Mm-hmm. So it'll save him some money if he does all of this as a package, but definitely still very, very labor intensive to do these.
And from here back, was there any much going on with that, or?
Nope. Checked over the rear brakes. They're 5 to 6 mils. They look pretty great. Rotors look good. No major leaks from here. Not even any seeping from the differential. All of these CV shaft boots look good. Honestly, and I think I've mentioned it before, with Mercedes, I don't generally see a lot of issues in the rear suspension. They don't tend to wear, very heavily. You don't get a lot of leaks, don't get a lot of CV failures, mm-hmm. any of that.
Well, with just that alone, we've gotten into the multiple thousands of dollars. Well, let's get this thing on the ground. So as you guys can see, when you add up 1,200 here, 700 there, 900 there, 2,000 here, and you write all this down on paper and you actually can look at it, $8,000 to $10,000. There's a lot of these for sale on Marketplace for $8,000 to $10,000. Should they buy those?
I would probably stay away from those unless you're, doing a lot of the work yourself, mm-hmm. and you have a good source for parts. These are definitely not for the faint of heart or the light of wallet.
What would you say the price range would be one of these that's actually nice and sorted and ready to roll?
I see quite a few of them in the $18,000 to $20,000 range with, very low miles that have been, really well maintained.
Right.
And that's what I would say to anybody looking at something like this is just, trust the source that you're getting it from, have the maintenance records, definitely do an inspection prior to purchasing,
yes.
And if, a dealership won't let you take it to a mechanic for, an independent inspection, that's probably a red flag, and just leave that one be, because there are plenty of these 221s on Marketplace.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind too is in this situation where, like, this customer is going to get a pretty big estimate, really big. This can be a point where they say, nope, I'm done, I'm dumping this thing. And it turns into that $10,000 221 for sale on Marketplace, which needs $8,000 to $10,000 worth of work.
And then you're just inheriting somebody else's problems, especially, you know, if you don't have the inspection prior, you don't have maintenance records to see what's been done or
Right.
addressed. It's, you know, it can be a gamble.
It can be. Well, I'll let you do the $1 Million Man run back to break.
He caught me off guard with that one.
So you heard it from the horse's mouth. Both of the horses, me and Grimes. Don't buy one of these for $9,000 on Marketplace. You will regret it. We're going to get the estimate together. I'm thinking the customer might go ahead and fix it all, but think about it. 2 weeks from now, he's going to be going to Texas. This car likely will not be done. And whatever expenses he had budgeted for his trip, now he can add $8,000 to $10,000 on top of that to get this thing ready for the trip. This is when sometimes an inspection for a road trip can blow up in your face. Don't get mad at the mechanic. Why did you stick me with this bill? No, 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 no. Why did you bring the car in? It's so broken. That's the question. I'm glad we caught it now because, like Grimes mentioned, the drive shaft could break loose and it can do serious, serious damage. And again, I don't have any trouble with the owner of this vehicle, the customer. Very pleasant to deal with. A friend, a really great person. So I'm not worried about that situation, but it can turn into that situation. Can you imagine being on a highway in the middle of nowhere and the drive shaft breaks loose and ruins it? Oh my goodness, what am I going to do now? The car's totaled at that point. This car would be totaled if it happened that way. Again, like Grimes mentioned, if you're looking for one of these, you need to be budgeting 18 to 20 grand, not 9 or 10. You're in the wrong realm if you're at 9 or 10. If you're curious what kind of tools we're going to use to fix this really nice, well, it will be really nice, S550, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut if you purchase anything. Really appreciate it. Check out Mrs. Wizard's Ways. She's got some really good content going on there. And make sure to hit the subscribe button here because we have tons more videos for you guys. Thanks for watching.